If you want to save money on your trading card purchases, we have a promo link over at 50cards.shop. Enter the promo code ATNIGHT to get 5% off your order. Hey everybody, welcome to Nexus at Night, your weekly Vanguard podcast. I'm alive.
I'm barely alive.
I'm doing fine.
When he's doing the best out of the three of it, no, it's fine.
True.
For people wondering what happened last week, I used numbing patches to try and cure my pinched nerve, and then I overdid it, and the side effect is stomach pain, so I was like doubled over. Don't overdo those patches, folks. Anyway, this week we're talking about specifically with the reveal of I've been calling him Quagmire, but this is Faded 1 of 0 Blangdmire.
Great name.
I like it too. Is new rideline for Dark States, and we want to talk in particular about his guard restrict ability. But first, just as a fact, does someone want to read it?
Sure. So, the Faded 1 of 0 Blangdmire. When unit attacks a Vanguard, you can bind 2 or more cards from your soul face down, up to a maximum of 4. You may draw 1. If you bound 4 or more cards, your opponent chooses 2 of their rear guards, binds them face down, and it gets 5k for every 2 cards in your bind zone. Every face down in your bind zone. At the start of the guard step of the battle where it attacked, if you have 8 or more face down cards in your bind zone, you may have it get critical +1 till end of turn. If you do, your opponent cannot call or play sentinels from the hand. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, and until the end of your opponent's next turn, all of your opponents and that unit's abilities are nullified. Persona Red will still activate.
So that second one's his divine skill.
So it's once per fight.
Yeah. Good one. I like this.
I think this is interesting. I like Dark Irregulars. This has a very like Dark Irregulars vibe of like build up big number and then hit hard with big asshole.
Mm-hmm. I just love the idea of like Sharhat or whoever, not just being this like fabulous fop with the rose or whatever, but just being a huge asshole the whole time he's doing it. I have 10 or more in soul. That means no grade zeros. Dick. You know? Or like he kind of gives off like Matt, I know you're a Hamilton fan, right?
Sure, let's go with that.
Okay, so just like King George, whenever he does his "You'll be back," that's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
I see.
DIs and this guy in general. But yeah, this is not just like for this battle. No sentinels. It's for the whole turn, and then also shutting off the abilities and abilities on the player.
And this is Dark States card?
Yeah.
So you need Dark States cards that make things go to bind zone? That's kind of what you're looking for?
It puts them there itself.
Oh, yeah, but only 2 at a time, right?
Up to 4.
Oh, up to 4. I see. Oh, so once you do it a second time, then you can go,
Yes.
I understand. Yeah. Okay. 2 or more.
This also nullifies Sanctitude too, because it's not saying like can't put sentinels to guard circle and just can't play them from hand.
Can't call or play.
And then shutting off abilities. So, to my understanding, if let's say you're playing a Lyrical Monasterio player, they get the ability where it's like for the rest of the fight, all my rear guards get plus 10k on my turn. Does shutting that off then subsequently not let it come on ever again, or is it
the
just
consensus right now seems to be that it does come back? Because it just says that they're nullified, not like removed.
Okay, so it's like a skill drain instead of a negation.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah, it just says till the end of opponent's next turn, so it basically is a blank card until then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like deleting, but like
But
less
if they
good 'cause
persona
of
ride, then they're gonna gain all their abilities back, right? That's it.
yeah. I mean, I think that's the same as just deleting, right? Like you just write a new one and then it all comes back.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate, but is what it
Mhm.
is. Not surprising.
That's interesting that it doesn't.
Wait, hold on. Yeah, you have to choose your opponent's Vanguard. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like
It says that unit's abilities
Yeah.
are nullified, so
Yeah, so it's
they
not like-
reride.
Yeah, it's not like they.
I just want to double check.
Mhm.
That'd be interesting if it was like you get persona ride, but everything else, nah.
Yeah, that would
Sorry,
be
man.
interesting.
Yeah.
That would be interesting, but yeah. Like I feel like the deletion ability kind of doesn't matter. It doesn't even stop defensive abilities because it activates at the start of the guard step.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like things that trigger like when this unit is attacked already go off. So this doesn't I feel like the deletion doesn't do anything except in the specific instance where your opponent can't re-ride.
Yeah, I guess so. Like that'd be one of those things where you either have to keep a close eye on your opponent.
No, you gotta make sure that you know, it'd be a really funny way to win
What?
is if somebody was on Greedon or something and you nullified its effect and they were already at 6 and they just died.
Yeah. You could already do that with January.
Oh my god, that is something you can do. That's so fucking funny.
That will never happen, but it is funny.
Yeah.
Why would it
You
never happen?
Well, that requires somebody to be playing the old Greedon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Doesn't the new Greedon have something similar where it's
Yeah,
like,
the
Yeah.
Greed on Mask also does it.
Yeah, but is anyone playing Greedon Mask?
There you
They
go.
were.
That's the
Oh,
thing
they
I'm
were?
looking for.
Okay.
It was meta for a while.
What? Dang.
Yeah.
I cannot remember which of the masks were meta and which were not.
A good chunk of
They
them
all
are.
kind of rolled. They kind of roll together.
Well, I think it's because they all have that similar aesthetic with the
They
The
do
eye
look
thing?
quite similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like they're playing a bunch of the same cards, so it's really hard.
mhm.
Yeah, but Greed on was meta for a while.
Yeah.
I'm
So
wondering
it
why
could happen.
reverse
It
didn't
could
do the
happen.
same.
It'd be a funny way to lose. Well, they
Yeah.
wouldn't. Well, yeah.
It'd be a funny way to win. They'd sure be pissed off, I bet.
I mean, they knew.
I
it
mean,
was coming.
sometimes you can't help it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They knew it's coming.
I would love to see like just some dude at your locals who plays Greedon and is a dick, and you just bring this to be an asshole
I mean,
about
you can
it.
already do that with Shiranui, right? Like if they're at 6 damage and you dominate, they don't have the the Vanguard doesn't belong
Right.
to them, so they don't have the ability anymore, and
Yeah.
they just
And
lose
then
on the
they're
spot.
gonna lose.
I
That's-
will say, Shiranui looks extra stupid.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what this episode is about, man.
Oh, my bad.
No. I'm kidding. The main thing I wanted to look at here was the turn-wide guard restrict, because guard restrict has evolved a lot.
Well, I want. So when
Has
I
it?
pitched the topic, I wanted to talk about like guard restrict in standard because it like barely exists,
Okay,
and
go with that.
also like defense power in standard is bad.
True.
So it's very hard to play around like guard restricts in the format. So like I wanted to talk about the place of guard restrict in standard because of like the nature of it.
Go on.
Yeah. So like I said, like guard restrict as your main win condition is like barely a thing in standard. So we had Laurel Narrow at the beginning. And
Mhm.
even that still had like the multi-attack aspect. Like standard has leaned very heavily into like what if attack more, right? Like there's very few decks that try to win in other ways.
Yeah. What if attack more, but also we got to be careful, so no more than 5 or what? Or that
Until
kind
they
of
made Shiranui, and then you could get
Yeah.
7 for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, Magnolia could do 6, but it's kind of a big chore.
But like that's been the design of standard, is just like what if attack more. So like very few decks have played like any other type of strategy. So like Zorga for a while until the mask version where they got a 4th attack, although I think like Zorga could still feasibly win without the 4th attack.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And then there's like Sagra, which they did eventually give a guard restrict to, but they gave it a battle door instead of like a sentinel restrict. That's like kind of bad. So,
Average.
like the deck still sucks. But I think Sagra's problem is more that the arms mechanic is very clunky, like the way they've developed it.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But it's just like there was Laurel Nerl, which has a guard restrict, but also like that same order that gives you a bunch of power also restands your rear guard. So it's like kind of both. Like Sagra has one, but the deck's not very good. Like they have printed like a handful of battle doors, so I know Jiva has one. I think Prison has one, and like Prison
has one. It's you.
Yeah.
It's the name is Alvin.
Yeah, like Prison, and like Prison is still largely a 3-attack deck. Like the one unit they have that can make extra attacks is like not very good, and I don't think they play it.
Right.
But yeah, like there's not a lot of like big asshole decks anymore like this. So like the most recent one is Luard, but that's also a stride deck, so you have multiple options. And like depending on the situation, it might just be correct to go into driver instead. And then now we have this where like the main win condition is, stopping your opponent from playing sentinels. And it kind of has that thing you were saying where like it is a turn-wide sentinel restrict too, like for the rest of the turn. So you were going to make a point about like the way guard restrict has changed.
So the way guard restrict has changed, like, way back in the day, it was no ones or higher because that's the only way, perfect guards were.
I completed the first one with Silent Tom.
Yeah, you're right. And so Silent Tom was no zeros, but he was kind of unique for a while. The no zeros thing eventually came back when they made draw PGs and V, like more ubiquitously. I'm like papering over a lot of stuff. I'm trying to get through this as quick as I can. So you had that as the more ubiquitous way to do perfect guards. And then also near the beginning of V, that's where you get the card Battledore Fighter and where the name Battledore skill comes from, which is when someone guards with a card, they can do 2 or more at a time. Throughout most of V, they expanded upon that, like being like a triple door where you're going to do 3, or
they just kept making the number bigger.
Either bigger or like it corresponded to something, or it's like as the same number of units you had, so does your opponent have to use the same number of cards. Or however
they did a lot of weird stuff, like guarding in intervals of 20k.
Hope on damp, baby. Yeah. Stuff like that. And as that continued on, Battledore skills tended to be more successful if they could either skirt the line of where the guarding would be. So like if you're hitting just above the power of the opponent's Vanguard, that makes them waste an extra card to guard you. Or if that unit is able to attack multiple times, then you have to then guard multiple times. In the case of Hope on Damp, where it's like 20k at a time for the whole turn. And it was also deemed to be kind of toxic to have a turn-wide guard restrict, because it could be easily abused. Now we're seeing this again, and we're like, oh, interesting. So what's changed?
I mean, for one, like this is a one-time thing. Like they haven't really, like I said, they like haven't really made guard restricts, which is also why I think a lot of people have like issue with this ability, is that like the options to play around it don't really exist. Like I have a similar problem with Luard, especially like in standard it has a glory skill, which is negating the one thing that we did have in standard, things like the cat that gain shield value. So like I feel like they have not really gotten to the whole like counterplay for guard restricts, which sucks because again, I do like the concept of just like big asshole that's really hard to guard. I think like Blangdmire, like I think one of the biggest problems is that you can't use Sanctitude either, and Sanctitude has been like the go-to counter for guard restricts up until now.
Sanctitude is the silver bullet for the entire game, both standard and premium. It's never not useful somewhere.
like yeah, like every deck just plays it, right? Like worst case scenario, it is just a regular ass perfect guard, but like in the instances where you can either like use it for free or use it to like bypass a guard restrict, it is a very powerful card. And so like I like a lot of what Blangdmire does in theory, but I do think like the specific execution where it's like turn wide, which kind of cuts off options. So like the reason I don't like turn wide guard restricts is because like I think the whole point is to like have options or to, like change your opponent's decision making, not just like okay, like 2-3 cards in your hand are completely unplayable, like for the whole turn.
Right.
So like another thing that had like guard restrict in the last set was Chris Rain, the lyrical archetype. So one of the grade ones had the ability that like if your opponent doesn't play a sentinel, they have to guard with like 3 different grades instead. And I thought that was like an interesting thing to do where like it is stopped by the thing that you would naturally use to stop it anyways, like perfect guard. But because Chris Rain has her divine skill that gives you a 4th attack that has like that like copies or criticals. So like if you get let's say you like check a critical trigger and you use like Chris Rain's ability, then you just have like a big ass 3 crit rear guard. Okay. So like if you use that grade 1 guard restrict over multiple turns and kind of grind your opponent out of their sentinels, then it's a lot harder to stop the divine skill. And that's something that like you as the lyrical player are working towards and something that your opponent has to consider when they're playing against you, where with Blangdmire it's like, oh, you have 8 cards in bind? All right, cool. I guess I ought to like dump these PGs before you stop me from using them entirely.
Like as soon as you see the Blangdmire rideline, you're like, okay, I better PG early so as to
because like it's inevitable that they're just gonna like hit you with it. Where like with Chris Rain, there's a level of strategy where like you could also just take the damage from Chris Rain, right? Like early on. So there's a little bit of like thinking, like you might also be able to like play into that guard restrict. Like probably not because it is a really weird guard restrict, but you know, like you're changing the way that you're thinking about it and trying to read like how your opponent is playing their turn and like when they're going to use the divine skill, where I feel like with Blangdmire, it's like, yeah, as soon as you get within a certain threshold, you're probably just going to like throw it out there, right?
Yeah. Matt, what do you think about all this?
It is kind of bizarre that like I really expect them just to never print a guard restrict like this ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like it seemed like they kind of went way too far with it in V, and they were kind of walking that back. And now I'm like, yeah, let's just screw it. Because
like they're not learning from their mistakes.
Like if you don't have triggers, right? This is a ton of shield. Like Blangdmire is going to be probably like 50k or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you know, like if you persona ride, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then his effect gives another 20k minimum from 43 minimum plus boost, right?
Yeah.
So that's already like 2 triggers plus another card for 1 to pass.
Yeah.
and like, then your other rear guards also have the guard restrict, right?
Yes, and they have a rear guard that gains a crit.
Sure, because why not?
Yeah.
And it's just so you're at 4 damage, and you're like, I have to drop how many cards to guard this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Which is just a lot, but it's hard to say how good it is because it is like a once per turn,
once per game,
or once per game. Sorry.
Yeah.
But like, they're just going to try to kill you with this shit.
Yeah. And like, so well, like when I did my initial testing, I think like the column will probably just end up being like 58k because like one of the other support cards gets 5k when it like boosts the Blangdmire, and then like it has another effect that gives an additional 2k, so it's just a 15k booster.
But we're talking a 4-card guard, at least.
Yep.
For 1 to pass, I guess. If you or 4 triggers if you have them.
Mm-hmm.
There are decks where the strategy is just guard early, and then you're usually able to kill them.
I mean,
like,
I think that's going to have to be what you have to do. Yeah. Keep yourself low on damage. That way you can like just take this guy if they go for it. But really, realistically, what's going to happen in that situation is your opponent's just going to not
Do it.
not do it immediately anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you're PGing early, you're actually costing yourself a fair amount of cards. So it's kind of like, all right.
Yeah, there's a bit of that push and pull. And again, like, it has a rear guard that gains a crit, so like they can still pressure you with that.
Yeah.
So it's just hard to be at low damage against this deck.
But I think the difference maker, kind of like what determines whether this deck is like really good or not, is how well it does exactly that. Whether it can actually put any reasonable pressure on you before it just tries to kill you.
Yeah.
Some decks are just unable to do so, which is why even if their pressure turns are really good.
Yeah. Also, this card just randomly like removes 2 rear guards.
Yeah, it just does that, huh?
Yeah, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't mind that. Like, I feel like in early D, they had like a ton of removal for all of the decks, and then they like slowly just kind of stopped printing removal cards. And now like there's a bunch of decks that exist that don't have removal. So I do like seeing like Blangdmire have like the ability to just randomly bind 2 of your opponent's rear guards.
One issue I do foresee is you do have to play some amount of rear guards that are going to get you to 4 more soul.
Yes.
Because like the first activation of this card will be pretty free, I think.
Yeah.
Because you'll already have 3 from the ride line, and then you just need to find another card somewhere.
Yeah. The ride line does soul charge too.
Right, which is the ride line will probably give to you maybe 1 extra card, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like you need to find 3 more cards to put in solar style.
Yeah.
And so the first activation is already like if your opponent commits a bunch, you're pretty much getting a pretty valuable first activation. If you combine 4, which I think is going to be the ideal play.
Yeah. Well, both cards in the ride line just do the same thing, where you reveal the top 3 cards and soul charge all grade 1 or graders. So they can both soul charge up to 3.
That's crazy. So you could just have it.
Yes.
But probably not. And the other card, I assume they put on the bottom?
I believe so, yes.
It'd be really dumb if they didn't.
Yeah. Like, they put the rest at the bottom, and then if you put 2 or more, you draw 1.
Oh, wow. That's incredible, actually.
Yeah. No, like, I think the ride line is pretty strong.
Yeah, that ride line is very good, actually. Because even if you put 1 card, you only get 1 soul, but then you get an extra card, and then this card's basically like +3 for 4 soul. That's pretty nice. But it's gonna wonder, yeah. But it does require so committing early is kind of awkward against this thing too.
Because like your opponent can punish like early rush by binding your rear guards. And then my first build, I was experimenting with like the set 11 order cards. So like the one that like you soul charge 1, give a unit 5k, and then like end of turn you could discard to bring it back. Like I was experimenting with that to like give the deck an early game. Also, like constantly recycling the order is just an easy way to soul charge every turn.
Right.
And you only have to play the 1 copy because the grade 1 can search it from drop zone.
Okay.
So like that was my plan. That was my plan when I first started testing Blangdmire, was like using, as I just took inspiration from Order Jet, because I played against it over the weekend at locals, and I'm like, actually, like that's not a terrible idea for just giving the deck an early game.
Yeah, those kinds of that order. I think when we first looked at it, I was like, running 1 copy that seems kind of value if you can like consistently get to it.
What was the order? It was
the plus 5k soul charge 1, then you can discard to get it back.
Oh yeah.
Just because like it's kind of like a thing. If you had nothing better to do, it's like an order you can always play, right?
Yep. So yeah, that's my build right now. Is I'm just running the grade 1 and then like 1 copy of the order.
That makes sense.
We just won't damage check it.
Yeah, I mean, just search it immediately, easy.
Yeah. So we all say. So says Barber's Law. Oh wait.
But this card might have some. This is decent. It reads decently to me. It seems to have a game plan. Again, it's just making sure that it can like deal enough get strong enough to deal damage to the opponent. But I guess like you activate it the first time, it gets 10k, right?
Yeah.
and then you activate the second time, and it gets 20k. And if they're, if you haven't used the Divine Sleeve, you just kind of keep going as long as you can get cards in Soul. But a third time is going to take a lot more work than the second time, even.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because even if you hit like 2 off each of the ride line, like you're still only at 7 cards. So maybe you can find an 8th. It's EC2 activations, but you still need to find 4 more.
Yeah.
But even if you like max hit 3/3, right? You're only at 9.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, this is. I remember when Zorga came out and we were ripping on it.
Yeah.
And then this kind of has that same energy where it's not really meant to be something multi-attacking.
I mean, it is. It does though. It already has a rear card that the grade 1 like restands something when it boosts.
It needs it.
Yeah. Just scroll down like 2 cards.
It's this guy.
Yeah. So when it boosts a grade 3 or greater with Blangdmire, it gets 2k. And then if you have 4 or more face down in your bind zone, you counterblast 1, restand one of your front row. If you have 8 or more, it gets plus 15k.
That's really good. I mean, like the fact that you can just slot that in with anything.
You mentioned they had a rear guard that get into crit.
Yep. Beneath that.
Steam Raiders a mood.
Yeah. So luckily the crit only lasts until end of battle, so you would have to pay Energy Blast 6 if you want it for both attacks, but
thank God.
Okay, so
But wait, you're not doing anything else with energy, so you just could stack energy.
Yeah. When placed on rare, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and is named Blangdmire, counterblast 1, reveal top 3, put any number in Soul. If you put 1 or more, draw 1. You may draw 1, sorry.
Yeah, but if you're playing toward a kill turn, you might as well stack 6 energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck it, right?
When
It's
it
not
attacks-
once per turn?
nope.
It's not.
when-
And it gets power plus 5,000 addition. Sure.
Yeah. When
Of
it
course.
attacks, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and has Blangdmire, and this unit's critical is 1 or lower. Very interesting way to put that. Energy Blast 3 gets plus 5k and plus a crit to end of battle. So
Yeah, so that's something you can, but also this is just something you can do like across the game.
yeah,
Right? It's like you restand it and you're like, I'll just give it a crit 2.
Oh, it also just soul charges 3 if you want.
Yep.
Never
and
mind.
draws
Just
you
kidding.
off that. No,
I see no issues.
Yeah, no, I think this deck is pretty strong.
Yeah, this card just kind of fixes every possible problem it could have had, huh?
Yeah.
Plus, there's all the other Dark States has that like helps with Soul.
This card's a triple R, right?
Yeah, looks like it
think so.
based off the picture. See the little yellow.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
A triple R.
Yeah.
This card feels like a triple R. It kind of
Yes, it
just
does.
solves every possible issue.
That thing's a double R, and
And
then
then the grade 3 is a common, I think.
You're
Not
joking.
him.
nah, mate. Triple
No,
R.
not him. The other
No.
grade 3.
The other grade 3. Then yes, this guy's a common. Yes.
I don't know what that card does.
Placed when an attacks van, if you have 4 or more face down in your bind zone, you may have it gets plus. You can have it get plus 10 if you do. Put it in Soul end of battle, and then when put into your Soul by your card ability, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and has Blangdmire, bind this card face down and draw 1. Wow, he has a really good set of tools.
Yeah, no, they kind of give this like I like overall like the support they gave it, and I really like what Blangdmire itself does. Like I like that it has a removal ability. I like that they've decided to make a big asshole with the guard restrict, although I think like the environment of standard maybe doesn't facilitate that kind of play style right now because of a lack of defensive options.
Right.
And I don't like that it is like turn wide. I'm not fond of that type of ability, although I will play it.
Part of me wants to pick this up myself too. It looks tempting for sure.
I think this deck's
It
cool.
seems kind of nice. I like that every subsequent card just kind of fix any question I would have had to start with.
Mhm.
It's very funny, very cool.
Yeah, like the deck has decent draw power. Like maybe not the best early game, but that's why I'm playing like that's why I'm currently conceptualizing like an order variant.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah, I mean like the episode like that we came to do wasn't necessarily about Blangdmire himself, even though ended up being, who cares? But just about like guard restrict in standard, like Root Beer was saying, where it's the game's not really equipped for it. It wasn't equipped for it in V very much either. And
Yeah.
look what happened there.
Honestly, the lack of G guards really does just hurt. Because G guards usually just bypass most guard restricts.
There's a lot of cards to guard.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking
Yeah,
about the
and
turn
that's
where your
impressive.
opponent has 6 energy persona ride Blangdmire, and you're just like, wow, that's a lot of cards.
Yes.
Because they're like, so the grade 2, it could just be like 28, 33 with crit, right? Restand it into.
Do you want the name again?
No, but the first attack wouldn't actually be with guard restrict, right?
No.
They could PG the first attack, but that's still 2 cards.
Yeah,
and then you attack with Vanguard, which is like 56 or something. And then that's like 4 cards, so that's 6. And then you restand the idiot. And the idiot with 15k, and then the idiot attacks again for 20, 35, 40 with crit. And that one does have the guard restrict. That's another 2 cards. So we're at 7, and you still have another attack.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cards.
Yes, it is.
So probably like 9 cards at least.
It seems like
it
seems like it would occupy that same space that DI's does, where it's good. It's really good, but it doesn't really catch on for whatever reason.
I mean, Darkness was meta during set 14.
Yeah, but it wasn't really super popular.
Yes, it was.
Not
it was quite popular. I feel like sure had a lot.
I don't know. I feel like DI's gets ignored.
Yeah, got pretty popular in G era for sure.
I think. Yeah.
But
it definitely topped with Blade Wing Assassins. It was like pretty strong meta deck at like the end of G. It was pretty strong for like the first set. Okay, it wasn't like the best deck. It was probably like the 4th best, but like it was still very strong when guest. Like it was definitely like strong when Gasteel was legal.
Look, you don't gotta tell me twice. All right, favorite deck of all time over there. That's I miss it every day.
Yeah,
I will pedantically correct you about Vanguard's history, even though you've been playing longer than me.
Oh, I know. No, like I was looking at the map of the completion for high-speed rail between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and I can't wait till it's done so I can take a train up there for $8 and punch you in the face. Just
that's a long train ride to punch someone in the face.
I mean, if it's high-speed rail, won't take too long, right?
Like 3 hours.
Maybe, yeah, and it won't be like $100 and something for a plane.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
but being at 4 damage against this guy seems real scary.
Yeah, honestly, even being at 3 because all the like selective soul charging that you have.
Oh yeah,
that's the other thing with Diaz. Diaz, it was just soul charge your nuts out and like, okay, if the triggers go with them, they go with them. Yeah, this one they can be like, okay, I will choose not to put this crit in here.
But being at 4 damage. Like every attack is like you will die if this hits, and you're like, that's wild.
Yeah,
minus obvious shit, but yeah.
Yeah. So turn wide guard restrict is still a little bit of a like side eye from me, but maybe because it's a divine skill, they figured out a balance with.
At least it's not no zeros again.
Yeah.
Or no zeros and all cards in the guard circle lose all abilities.
That was an interesting one for sure.
For the turn, of course.
Yeah. Well, Ichikashima didn't have the no zeros thing. It just turned off your auto abilities.
Yeah, which is worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And or.
I mean, in my head, I was thinking if they were going to do that with Ishikashima, they would then turn around and make a bunch of G guards with continuous abilities, but they kind of never did. It was like
they don't print G guards anymore.
That too.
Quagmire has the continuous ability.
Randomly, some Royal Paladin G guard is like it continuous if you have 2 or more grade 2 rear guards. Like, okay,
sure.
Yeah,
whatever.
Day late and a dollar short, guys.
I hate it when they. So this is kind of an aside here, but I fucking hate it when they make G guards that are just like really freaking easy to play around somehow. Like they're like, if the stars align, and you're like, well, I will simply wait for the stars not to be aligned.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, all right, well, like having 2 grade 2 rear guards is just like, all right, I'm gonna attack your rear guard, and you're like, well, if I let it die, then my G guard gets worse.
Mhm.
Oh, you can retire my rear guards. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh no.
When this unit is put on guard circle, counterblast and perform the following depending on which battle of the turn it is. First battle, choose one of your units, gets plus 5k. Fourth battle or more, this unit gets plus 20k till end of battle. So what's happening during second or third? I don't know, go fuck yourself.
That's right.
Wave second or third time, plus 5k shield. Just like, come on, guys. The fact that they had to keep printing Aquaforce G guards until they had just enough to cover every number of battle, they're like, all right, we've done our part. Leave us alone.
They're so lazy, the Aquaforce G guards. Jesus Christ,
They are.
But somehow they're better than Royal Paladins or Murakumas.
Murakuma's G guards do not exist. So
At first, I thought the flip one that like lets your guys that you guard with go back to deck was halfway decent, but like, nah,
is it? You think GB1 plot maker is better?
that's why I said nah. Like I remember
that
first getting
I like that it's
revealed.
Counterblast 1 plot maker, but needs GB.
Yeah,
Very
and then
cool.
plot maker's just like, oh, plus 10 for playing the game. And plus-
Shichi is like almost playable, except needs a card on board.
Anyway, so what do you guys think about turn-wide guard restrict? Does having it back ruin the game outright, or did Bushi kind of figure it out this time? Leave it in the comments below, or on your podcast app of choice. Tell your friends, tell your family, share with folks. Patreon.com.
Share if you play.
What?
Share if you play.
Share if you shut up.
Stop.
Patreon.com/Nexus at night if you want to help the show out. Get a bonus show every week with 2 to 3 of us. You can get thanked at the end of and on the bottom of each episode, like Darren, Cole, Josh, Jeremy, GR, and Ali are $10 patrons. If you want to hit us up at Nexus at Night on Twitter or Instagram. How about the rest of us?
Find me on Twitter at Wiggums, 2 G's, 2 Z's, like it says here.
You can find me at Plasma Eclipse, like it does not say here.
I know, it takes some getting used to. You can find me at Atlas Novak, like it says here. Yeah. I know. So you can find me at all the places, or my YouTube channel, The Epileptic Comic, or my other podcast, Generation Dan, which is a comedy podcast about generational differences. That's every Friday on your podcast app of choice, or just look it up. And then I also recently started a history podcast called Last Minute History with Cole Clayton, former host of Generation Dan. That's every other Monday on the Generation Dan RSS feed. So thanks, everybody, for listening. And until next time, I was Atlas.
I'm still mad.
I'm Root Beer.
And have a good night, everybody.